In an age dominated by firearms, sometimes it pays to get up close and personal. Hello and welcome to the 5th episode in the Killing Floor 2 Perk Guide. In this video, we take a look at a perk that isn't afraid to get into the thick of it, and one that is essential in almost any 6-man squad, the Berserker. The Berserker primarily excels at hand-to-hand combat, using swords, hammers, and a host of less conventional weapons to get the job done. They do also carry a few ranged alternatives, allowing them to soften up the opposition before charging in headlong. Regardless of level, all Berserkers will have night vision optics, useful on darker maps like Farmhouse and Catacombs, as well as being immune to being grabbed by clots. As an added bonus, you will also deal 25% more damage with perk weapons and have a 5% faster melee attack speed. Leveling up the perk will also additionally improve perk weapon damage, mobility with melee weapons, damage resistance, and melee attack speed. Berserkers should leverage this added mobility, attack speed, and damage to perform hit and run style attacks when faced with an overwhelming force, allowing you to whittle down an enemy and minimize your exposure. However, as you progress in level, the Berserker does gain increased durability, allowing you to absorb significant amounts of trauma without slowing you down. The Berserker's Tier 1 weapon may not seem like much, but the Crovel is one of the more effective starting weapons. With a very fast attack speed and fair damage, it's able of dealing with most low and medium level enemies very quickly. Its primary fast attack deals slashing damage, great for dealing with clots and stalkers, while its secondary slow attack deals blunt force trauma, more effective at stumbling bigger enemies and against crawlers. The second tier weapon for the Berserker is an odd one, and is the only ranged centric weapon dedicated to this perk. The Vlad nail gun fires carpentry nails with a reasonable amount of power, able to decapitate most enemies with a single shot. Its secondary fire mode shoots a cluster of up to 7 nails at the enemy, functioning in a similar fashion to a shotgun, and this fire mode works best when dealing with more durable opponents up close. One added benefit of the nail gun is that missed projectiles do have a chance to ricochet into other enemies, improving overall lethality. While this isn't technically the Tier 3 weapon for the Berserker, the Zweihander is available for owners of the Chivalry game, or if at least one player in the server owns it. It provides an interesting alternative to the Pulverizer at a slightly discounted price, dealing slashing and stabbing damage as opposed to bludgeoning damage. The broad, sweeping attacks allow the Zweihander to not only strike far, but also hit multiple targets, making it great for dealing with groups of enemies. Its heavy attack also is usually powerful enough to deal with mid-level enemies like Sirens and Husks with a single blow. It is, however, a bad choice to use against Skrakes and Flesh Pounds, as they will receive more damage from the Pulverizer due to specific damage resistances. The next weapon available, the Pulverizer, is generally a better option when dealing with bigger enemies, as Skrakes do not have a resistance to bludgeon type damage, and Flesh Pounds will receive additional damage from the heavy attack since it deals additional explosive damage. The most unique thing about the Pulverizer is the use of explosive shotgun shells to increase the power of its heavy attack. It holds a 5-shell magazine behind the top part of the handle that will fire upon using the heavy attack. If the magazine is empty, or you have no more ammunition, you will still deal additional damage, just without the explosive punch. This alternative attack can also hit multiple enemies with one strike, making it somewhat effective at crowd control. The final weapon available for the Berserker, the Eviscerator, has both a melee and ranged attack, albeit at the cost of being extremely heavy. Its ranged attack fires large, rotating saw blades and are able to strike multiple enemies with devastating results, often able to decapitate most with a single shot. Unlike other melee weapons, the Eviscerator uses fuel to power itself, and is only consumed when using the melee function of the weapon. It also can maintain an attack for as long as you hold it down, assuming your fuel supply lasts, which allows you to quickly dispatch bigger enemies if you're able to get a clear shot at their head. Like every other class, every 5 levels you will unlock 2 skills to choose from, and for Tier 1, you will get Sonic and Poison Resistance. Sonic Resistance will reduce damage from a Siren Scream by 40%, while the next option will reduce damage from Bloat Bile and Nerve Gas by 40%. Generally, I prefer to use the Sonic Resistance until the boss wave, at which point Poison Resistance has a 50% chance of being useful. The next tier relates to health, and I usually elect Fortitude, as the additional 75 health allows you to absorb much more damage than the slow healing of Vampire. The only time I could see Vampire being useful is without a medic, but even then the additional health would still let you better handle larger enemies. Tier 3's options offer a bit more difficult decision. Furious Defender offers a more consistent benefit, as the increase in damage and attack speed is universal. However, Block will provide a bigger benefit for those who regularly attempt to parry or block attacks. For less experienced players, Defender is generally considered to be the more forgiving option. The next 2 skills, Parry and Smash, function similar to the skills mentioned in the previous tier. Parry will increase speed and damage for 4 seconds after successfully parrying an attack, but Smash will increase heavy attack damage and give you the chance to knock down big enemies. Since parrying can be very difficult against some enemies, I would suggest Smash, as it is overall more useful. Finally, in Tier 5, we have the skills that affect Zen time, and my choice almost in every instance is Spartan, as the increased mobility gives you an almost godlike advantage over the enemy for a brief amount of time, allowing you to quickly maneuver in and out of combat before the enemy even knows what hit them. The Berserker is probably the most unique class in Killing Floor, and requires much more finesse than its counterparts. Learning to parry and block, or at least how to outmaneuver enemies, is essential to surviving bigger attacks. Parrying an attack requires you to use the block function on your melee weapon just before an enemy strikes, and will give you a visual and audio indication if successful. Blocking can be done by holding down the block key and will reduce incoming damage, however not to the same extent that parrying does, and it will not make the enemy stumble backwards. These skills aren't easy to master, but even basic use of them can make a huge difference against the biggest of enemies. Skrakes, for example, attacked predictably and can be parried relatively easily, while Fleshpound attacks are more random and much more frantic, making blocking a better option. Do keep in mind that some attacks are unparryable, and this includes any attacks that are glowing made by large or boss enemies. However, they can still be blocked. When playing solo, your own healing capabilities can keep you alive, but when playing with more than a couple of people, a medic is almost essential to keeping your health up, as you will sustain far too much damage to repair yourself. While you are durable, don't be afraid to make a tactical withdrawal and heal, as a high-level medic can generally refill your health in under 10 seconds, assuming most of his darts find their mark. That being said, don't charge headlong into big enemies if you don't have to. Eliminate nearby threats to give yourself more freedom in your movement, as being pinned against a wall of clots and a Fleshpound will not end well. Overall, the Berserker is an essential part of any squad, and its value only increases with difficulty. While the Berserker will take a bit of practice to master its finer abilities, it pays off by being extremely mobile and durable. The biggest concession you make by playing the Berserker is that you will have to get close to the enemy to bring your most powerful weapons to bear, meaning support from your team is absolutely essential. But if you aren't afraid to get down and dirty with the enemy, sharpen your sword, grab some armor, and go berserk. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, farewell.